So I'm thinking about the 16th chapter of the Gita, which is called the Divine and Demonic Natures.
Mahayogi Prabhu, we have a question from Madhusudan Maharaj. So shall I ask it now or after, in the end? Actually, it is not a question, simply it was my question, but he said to ask me you also. Yes.
All right. Yeah, so, go ahead.
Yes, on back to Bhakta Basics class of which is led by Madhusudan Maharaj, we were reading chatursloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, and I asked him if the shloka somehow coincides with the shloka somehow coincide with chatursloka from Bhagavad Gita. I mean, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita chaturslokas. Are they interconnected? Are they coincide somehow? So I have such a question.
Oh, okay. And he told you to talk to me.
Yes, he answered this question, but then he said to me that you are making Gita talks and that maybe you also can answer this question.
What was his answer?
His answer was that they are somehow connected, but somehow not connected, because the topic of Bhagavad Gita and topic of Srimad Bhagavatam are different topics. Like Srimad Bhagavatam is devoted to Krishna. That's why chatursloka is more about Krishna. And in Bhagavad Gita is devoted not only to Krishna. That's why chatursloka is not only about Krishna. But I don't want to retell you, because I'm afraid that I can make a mistake. So, and to lie somehow.
Well, these are subtle questions. This is a very nice question. It's something that deserves, Hare Krishna, Shivashani Kumar, hello. This is a question which deserves some thought and some study. See? So, what else do you have? What's the theme? Tell us, because I've been sitting here talking for hours and hours. According to you, what is the theme? You've studied these things. What's the theme of the Bhagavad Gita? What's the theme of the Bhagavatam, and how are they different? You tell me so I know how much I need to speak on this or not.
Mahayogi Prabhu, but I'm not a teacher, I'm not a lecturer, so I don't have any qualification.
Right. So you represent the folks at Gita Talks, right? So what would you say, or what do you suppose the theme of Bhagavad Gita is versus Bhagavatam, and how are they different? It's a very good topic for a doctoral thesis. It's different. Yeah.
I can say that as far as I noticed, yes, in shlokas, in chatursloka, all shlokas in chatursloka in Bhagavatam are connected with Krishna and about Krishna, about his nature. And the chaturslokas from Bhagavad Gita, yes, the first one is also about Krishna, but as far as I remember, next three shlokas are more about his devotees and the way to Krishna, and that he can protect them, that he can help them on this way. So I can make a conclusion that Srimad Bhagavatam is about Krishna, and that in chatursloka in Bhagavad Gita, that Bhagavad Gita and actually chatursloka of Bhagavad Gita, as Madhusudan Maharaj also said, the shlokas, yes, of Bhagavad Gita, are shlokas about our spiritual way to the Lord, to Krishna.
Okay, let's hear from Subhashini. I know you're an expert on the Gita. You just sit here and listen to me because it's a hobby of yours, but I know that you have a very deep and thorough appreciation of the Gita. So what would you say on this?
Sorry, Dandavats, Prabhu, and Dandavats to everyone. First of all, I should say I'm not an expert, and I've been reading Bhagavad Gita for many years, but this point about what she said, it's very I haven't thought about that before, but of course like the first sloka, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Matta Sarvam, that is the Krishna, and then Matchitta Matgada Prana. So yes, that is about the devotees, and yes, the next two, Tesham Evanakam Tesham Satata Yuktanam. Yeah, I haven't thought about that actually, about this chatursloka.
Yes, that's why I said it's a very nice question. See,
yeah,
I have a very thorough lecture prepared about the distinction between divine and demonic qualities in the 16th chapter. I thought about this a lot because if you think about Western civilization, there's more of a focus on what we call vice and virtue, especially from the time of Aristotle and his Nicomachean ethics, and later Marcus Aurelius, the Stoics, Seneca, he was Spanish, spoke about vicio and virtud. What does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be bad? Is it bad to be good? Is it good to be bad? These are great questions for moral philosophy. And Krishna doesn't really focus so much on moral philosophy. He's more giving us the transcendental path. But in the 16th chapter, he touches on that. So what is the Hindu or Vedic, if you like, version about vice and virtue? How is that different from, say, Christian vice and virtue as seen in, say, Thomas Aquinas, and even modern views, beginning with Kant and his moral imperative. So I was already ready with a nice lecture about all that. And then she comes in with the chatursloka, and that's a great question. It deserves some attention,
yes, yeah.
So the problem is, and this is maybe why someone wanted me to give a more expansive answer to this. Problem is, for me to tell you this is the essence of the Bhagavatam, I have to really know the 18,000 verses of the Bhagavatam to say this is it. I went through 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam profoundly and studied it all for years. And the conclusion is these 4 verses, and here's why. To really be honest, right? To give an honest, and the same with the Bhagavad Gita. I have to say, well, I'm an expert on the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita, and these 4 verses are the essence, the core of that book, and here's why. And I can't do that because I'm not that well prepared. I'm very insignificant. I'm not, as Subhashini said, I'm not an expert on that. I can't tell you. And yet, on the other hand, we have guidance from our gurus. So actually, that's a very simple answer. But I had not thought about this in a long time either. Now, I remember the first time I heard about the Bhagavatam was reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, because I was about 16 or 17, and I had a copy of this book, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, paperback, published by Macmillan. because I was fascinated with the devotees. I thought either these people are completely insane and mad and crazy because they're going around with shaved heads, ringing bells, waving incense, dressed funny, and chanting Hare Krishna. What is this? But when I would talk to them, they made perfect sense. And so I received, I can't remember if I went to a bookstore and actually bought it, because in those days they sold that in the bookstore, and began going through the Bhagavad Gita. And I thought, wow, this is fascinating. This answers all my questions. Now, the Bible doesn't really tell you what is Atma, you know, it doesn't explain what subtle process leads to the creation of the world, or what is karma, what is dharma, how are they different? You know, in the Bible, you have 10 commandments, and that's it. In the Manu Sanghita, there's thousands of commandments, but they're different for different people. You have to adjust according to Varna and Ashram. It's much more subtle. So I was fascinated reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I found on practically every page, Srila Prabhupada says, now in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says this or that. And I thought, what? You mean there's another book besides this that goes deeper? Yeah. So after I became a devotee or joined the movement in 1976, I began reading the Bhagavatam, and I was very upset because I discovered that Srila Prabhupada had not finished translating the entire book. He was up to about the 4th or 5th canto in the 1970s when I joined. But I found in the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam, there's these 4 verses, and it says, well, this summarizes the book. So then you have the chatursloka in the Bhagavatam. Now, how would they be the same, or how would they be different? Now, obviously, as you've pointed out, they can't really be the same, since the focus of Bhagavad Gita is different. It's a more general focus, isn't it? Whereas the Bhagavatam is more specifically about Krishna. In fact, we know that Vyasadeva, he wasn't really very happy after writing the Bhagavad Gita, putting it in, you know, printing it, editing the Mahabharata. And he goes to Narada. And Narada says, what's wrong? And Vyasa says, you know, I'm not really completely satisfied. And Narada tells him, this is because you didn't explain really who Krishna is. It's in the Gita, Ham Sarvasya Prabhavo, there it is. But you should go into depth. So in the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto takes up the largest part of the work. It's a vast part of the Bhagavatam. Almost half of the Bhagavatam is the 10th canto. So it's all about Krishna. But as I said, this is just kind of a simple answer to your question. And you suggested that to me. You said Dandi Maharaj had pointed out, look in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the basic idea, ladies and gentlemen, is that you cannot understand these scriptures without guru. That's the nut. Okay, that's the essential point, if you have to boil it down. Okay. Punto. The real point of the chatursloka is guru. And the real point of the chatursloka in the Bhagavatam is guru. Now, how can I say that? Did I read all 18,000 verses of the Bhagavatam and come to that conclusion? No. But Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami helps us because he was trained by Swarup Damodar. He's trained by Jiva Goswami, and they know the purport of the Bhagavatam. They got it from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jiva Goswami, of course, he's an incredible scholar. One of his books is called, the Bhagavat Sandarbha. He wrote 6, the Tattva Sandarbha, the Bhagavat Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, Bhakti Sandarbha, like that. And in his book, Bhagavat Sandarbha, he explains about the inner purpose of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam itself explains that also. Shukadev Goswami gives that. But we owe a debt to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami because he's the one who really explains this. Now, on the basis of what evidence am I telling you this? Because if you speak in scholarly circles or with other sadhus, you should give some kind of evidence. Well, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, his most important work, of course, is the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And at the very beginning of the book, in Adi Lila, he has Mangalacharana, which means it's an auspicious introduction to the book. So he says, Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan, Isham Isha Vatarakan, Tat Prakasham Chatat Chakti, Krishna Chaitanya Sangyakam. He says, I offer my obeisances to the gurus, to the bhaktas, to God himself, to the avatars, to the prakash, the manifestations, and as well as the Shakti. All of this from Sri Chaitanya himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityanando Sahodito, Godo Raye Pushpavanto, Chitro Shando Tamonudo. So more specifically, what is he talking about? Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and the moon, who have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and bless everyone. And then he starts going into depth. Yad Advaitam Brahmopanishadi Tatyapyasya Tanuba Ya Atmantur Jami Purusha Iti So Syangsha Vibhava Shad Aishwaryai Purno Ya Iha Bhagavan Sashraya Mayam Narchaitanyat Krishna Jagati Paratatvam Paramiha. He says, what the Upanishads describe as Brahman is his effulgence, and Paramatma is his plenary portion. Sri Chaitanya is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no truth is greater than or equal than him. So this is Kaviraj Goswami's thesis. And he begins outlining his thesis by describing the different qualities of the Panchatattva. He points out that Sri Krishna Chaitanya is God himself in the mood of his own devotee, Radha. And Nityananda Ram is Sankarshan. The Karnadakshay Vishnu is a partial representation. Sri Advaitacharya comes as the avatar, the incarnation of Mahavishnu to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya, and propagates the cult of devotion. So this is the Panchatattva, and Kaviraj Goswami offers obeisances to them. And then he begins describing a little bit about Krishna and his glories and the different aspects of Krishna. But he says the purpose of this auspicious invocation is by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord and the personality of Godhead, I've invoked their benedictions. So the structure of the Chaitanya Charitamrita is interesting because Kaviraj Goswami goes back and forth between Sanskrit verse and Bengali verse. So maybe not everyone who read the original Chaitanya Charitamrita when it first came out, not everyone spoke perfect Sanskrit, obviously. So he's paraphrasing what he says in Sanskrit, in Bengali. So he's saying here, well, if you didn't really understand what I just pointed out in Sanskrit, this is an auspicious invocation. And the point of it is to glorify Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan. Grantera Rambe Kari Mangalacharan, Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Chirashmaran. So Kaviraj Goswami, as he goes on with his explanation, he says, what I'm talking about here is God himself, the absolute truth, and his servants, his devotees. He describes Sri Chaitanya and then Nityananda, then Advaita and the Panchatattva. So he says, E chauda shloke kari mangalacharan, tanhi madhya kaki sava vashtu nirupam. These 14 verses offer auspicious invocations and describe the supreme truth. So now I'm going to begin explaining this. I'm going to unwrap a little bit the meaning. He says, Krishna enjoys by manifesting himself as Guru, as Bhakta, as Shakti, as Avatar, and as Prakash. These are all 6 in 1. So if in the Christian concept there's a trinity, here we find 6. There's Krishna, Guru, Bhakta, Shakti, Avatar, and Prakash. And so he comes back to his Mangalacharanam again. He's going to recapitulate his argument. He says, Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan, Ishan Isha Vatarakan, Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti, Krishna Chaitanya Sangyakyam. See, I offer my obeisances, Vande, to the Guru, Isha Bhakta, to the devotees, Ishan, to God, Ishan Avatar, to the incarnations, to the Prakash, to the Shakti, and to Krishna Chaitanya himself. And to the gurus, and both Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and to the 6 Goswamis. I'm fast forwarding a little bit through the book. So what I was saying before is the idea being expressed is that the essential principle in the chatursloka, it's really about Guru. So then, as he's going along, Kaviraj Goswami quotes a verse here from the from the chatursloka of the Bhagavad Gita. So, as I said before, if you're looking for a deeper understanding of how these 2 different chaturslokas are related, you can see that here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. After his Mangalacharanam, And while he's still giving credit to Guru and the Bhaktas, he quotes the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam, jenamam upayanti te. So if you look at the commentary here given by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he explains that this particular section of the Gita really has to do with the idea that Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, everything comes from me. So if everything comes from him, the process of devotion also comes from him. The process by which he could be understood also comes from him. Someone once told Srila Sridhar Maharaj, well, you can't know the infinite, because if the finite could know the infinite, he would be another infinite. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj pointed out that the Upanishads tell us to seek out that knowledge by knowing which everything may be known. So why would the Upanishads advise us to know the infinite if it were impossible? But what we understand is that the infinite can reveal himself to the finite. And in fact, he does this through the Guru. So that's the point of this verse. He says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. Srila Sridhar Maharaj comments, Mata sarvam pravartate, every attempt and movement begins from me, including the methods by which everyone worships and serves me in devotion. Nayam atma pravachena labhyo na medhayana bahuna shrutena. The Lord cannot be known by logic, intelligence, or extensive study of the scriptures, but he reveals himself to one who is eager to serve him and prays to him for his grace. In this way, Mata Sarva Pravartate, I am the first to reveal to the people, worship me in this way. I appear as Guru, and through him, I worship myself. And also in the Bhagavatam, Guru is described by the Lord as his own direct manifestation. Acharyam vam mam vijaniyam navamanya dakarhi chit. Krishna tells Uddhava, you should know the bona fide spiritual master as my very self. Guru Dev is the embodiment of all the gods. Furthermore, the Lord's finest potency is Srimati Radharani. Of course, there are many other eternal associates, but the highest order of devotional service is represented in Srimati Radharani. Lord is therefore saying, my worship is shown by me. I, as my finest potency, worship myself. Iti matva bhajante mam. Understanding this conception, the devotee will come to worship me always under the direction of my best worshiper, my finest potency and representation, Radharani or Guru Dev. So, Matchita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayanti Mam Nityam, two Shanti chants about me enlightening one another with the nectar of their devotional realization, ever content and ecstatic in their divine natures. So that's where these two chatushlokis coincide. Now, in the Bhagavatam, we see something a little bit different, but along the same lines. And Kaviraj Goswami says, Jata Brahmane Bhagavan Swayam Upadishyanu Bhavitavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swayam Bhagavan, taught Brahma and made himself realized. So in the Gita, we're told everything comes from Krishna, everything comes from God, including the process by which he is to be worshipped. Things are related. So before thinking about the chatushloki in the Bhagavatam, let's just remember what's the context there. And the context is like this. Shukadev Goswami is being asked, which is one of the topics touched on in the Bhagavatam. And Shukadev Goswami gives a sort of philosophical, ontological understanding about the nature of the jiva and the soul, how the soul comes into this world. But then he decides, well, I'm going to give a more concrete understanding. And Bhagavatam is Purana, because sometimes philosophical principles are worked out by telling stories. So he tells the story of how Lord Brahma creates the universe. And Lord Brahma is sitting atop the lotus, but he finds himself all alone. Cut off. I don't know where I got carried away. I was reading a little bit, but Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's talking about guru. So then he quotes the chatushloki from the Bhagavatam and the chatushloki from the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavatam, it says something very similar. Srila Prabhupada comments, as in the Bhagavad Gita 10th chapter, the personality of Godhead Krishna has summarized the whole text in 4 verses, namely, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava. So the complete Bhagavatam has also been summarized in 4 verses as Aham Evasam Evagre. Thus, the secret purpose of the most important Bhagavad Gita conclusion has been explained by the original speaker of the Bhagavatam, who was also the original speaker of the Gita. So Brahma's sitting on top of the lotus and he's looking around and he sees darkness. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is this? And he hears this sound, tapa. And he thinks, okay, tapa, that means austerity. You have to perform some austerity. So he performs very severe meditation austerity for about 1,000 years by the calculations of the demigods. And after a time, he opens his eyes and he sees before him Vaikuntha. And there's a description given there. Brahma's personal revelation of Vaikuntha is given in the Brahma Samhita. The Brahma Samhita is a text that was found by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was traveling through Madras and South India, one of the temples there. He found this ancient manuscript, which is the 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita. Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu Kalpa Riksha. His vision of divine Vaikuntha is Chintamani gems everywhere, Surabi cows who can grant any sort of wish, and Krishna with his peacock feather and divine attributes. All that's given in the Brahma Samhita. So you might argue that this Vaishnava thing that we have, it's some new cult, but at least it's 500 years old, which puts us in the same category as many different world religions. Islam is dating from, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th century, something like that. So at least from the 1500s, the 16th century, there's this particular concept of Krishna. But we know this goes back thousands of years because, of course, we have the Gita and we have the Bhagavad Purana or Srimad Bhagavatam, and they coincide. So in the Bhagavatam, Brahma looks out and he sees, oh my God. Oh my God, there is God. And it's sort of an interesting, it's a very fascinating idea, because atheists will always ask, well, if God created the universe, then who created God? So here's the God of the universe who created the universe, and he's looking out and he's going, oh my God, you created me. So there's the answer. And is it the four-handed Vishnu of Vaikuntha? Is it Krishna? Not that entirely clear, because it says four-handed. So I don't know, is this the four-handed form of Krishna that Krishna shows Arjuna at the Battle of Kurukshetra, or is this Vishnu? But in any case, Bhagavan reaches out to Brahma and takes him by the hand. He shakes his hand. As if to say, well, now you have to create the world. It's not an easy job. Someone has to do it. And it's your turn. And it says that Brahma's confused because he's not really sure. Well, how do I create the universe? How do I go about doing this? And in effect, Krishna's telling him, you don't have to worry. It's going to come through you by my energy. And so he comes out with these 4 verses where he says, Aham evasam evagre, nanyad yat sad asat param, paschadaham yad etach cha, yo vashishyeta sosmyaham. Brahma, he says, it is I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was existing before this creation when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. So it's very similar to the Aham Sarvasya Pravavo verse where Krishna is saying, everything is coming from me. And the purport that everything is coming from me is that the revelation by which God can be known also comes from God. That revelation comes in the form of Guru. And Kaviraj Goswami at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's saying, don't worry, You're thinking, I'm reaching out to God and I'm getting nothing. Nothing is coming back to me. I hear nothing. I'm praying to him and nothing comes to me. But this is not true, because if you sit quietly and listen, you'll hear Omkara. You'll hear the sound of the universe talking back to you. Om, a big yes. And what is the universe saying? Yes, it is. It's real. What you're looking for, it's real. And if that's not enough, then revelation will come to you in the form of guru, who's a human person, who's carrying God within him, a God-infected, God-intoxicated soul will come to you and reveal the truth. So Kaviraj Goswami, and this, in case you're interested, it's a historical fact that in India 500 years ago, God, Krishna, came as Sri Chaitanya in the mood of Radharani, his energy. And another interesting point made by Sridhar Maharaj again and again is that God is not alone. He's not, a king is never alone. A king is surrounded by his entourage, his children, his ministers, his armies and elephants. So if someone claims to have a direct connection with God without anyone else, this is a dubious claim. So Kaviraj Goswami makes no such claim. He's first at the very beginning of his book, before he describes the life and soul of Sri Chaitanya and his teachings. He explains, God does not come alone. Sri Krishna Chaitanya is not alone. He comes with Nityananda, who is his plenary expansion. He comes with Advaita Acharya, the incarnation, the avatar of divinity, who came and called Krishna down. He said, you have to come. The earth is being ravaged. There's no morality. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. You promised that when everything is upset, you will come to this world and enlighten us. Now's the time. We're praying for you. Please come down. Give us the holy name. And so he comes with Nityananda Prabhu. He comes with Advaita Acharya Prabhu. He comes with Gadadhara, who is the very representation of Radharani herself, and also with devotees like Srivas Thakur and the Bhakta Vrinda. So we say Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All the different devotees, they're all God-intoxicated souls. And if I don't understand this, I don't have any faith. I don't know how can I move from one place to the next? It's all gone. Look for the devotees. They're there. I had the recent opportunity to spend all my money and travel to meet some devotees. And I thought, I don't care. I'm going to throw caution to the wind. In Mexico, we have an expression, tirar la casa por la ventana. It means to throw the house out the window. So I'm going to throw the house out the window and try to meet some real devotees. And I had the opportunity to meet Suvashini and her husband Kumar, and
So I think that Mahayogi Prabhu will not come back. Maybe he has big problems with the internet connection, to my regret, because to my regret, yes. So thank you everybody for connecting, for joining us. So see you next week. Actually, we didn't start with the 16th chapter, but next week we will start. But this talk today, it was very, very interesting, and very, very deep. I liked very much. So see you next week.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you. Dandavats.
Hare Krishna. Всем большое спасибо. Увидимся на следующей неделе. Маhayogi Prabhu, видимо, у него проблемы с интернет-соединением. На следующей неделе продолжим. Мои поклоны. Харе Кришна.
Hare Krishna.